Good afternoon. Welcome back again. And today I'm talking to some of the questions that I normally post on my Facebook page. I know many people have requested that I answer some of the questions. They don't have the culture of just thinking about the question, because most of the time I've noticed that it's always difficult to define a problem. Most of us actually would rather rush to answering a nullity. Even when there is nothing at stake, we still proffer our own solutions when the problem itself is not defined. How best do we promote the culture of defining and framing questions? What questions are relevant today? If you are a professional, what questions are relevant to you? And what questions ought to be relevant? So today I raised the following questions. I start with the first one. Do you think birthdays are and can be accelerators in terms of professional and business development? We assume that everyone who enters the professional ladder after completing college, goes into the job market, wants to rise up on the professional ladder. If it is business, one obviously wants to do well in business. But where are you going to get advice? As you are growing up, you discover that each ground you touch is new ground anyway. If you are a lawyer, you need clients who have problems. And if you are known to people with problems, then you're going to be a good lawyer. Because when you practice and you are exposed to as many problems as there can be, it means you automatically become good at the craft that you have chosen. So assume a birthday is one such date. When people say, happy birthday, wish you many happy returns, what is meant by many happy returns? Because we all too often think that actually there is no meaning to it. Some don't celebrate their birthdays, but some cultures do. So every day somebody is celebrating something. So if I want to join a certain company, and I know somebody is connected to the CEO of that company, and the CEO is celebrating a birthday, then if I want to use a birthday as an accelerator, then I will have to find myself at the birthday, celebrate with the people who are there, and you know that it is always the case that people who are at the top of the food chain associate themselves with people who are also at the top. So if you happen to be there, then you are more than likely to meet somebody who can be of value to you. That's what is called networking. But when you pose a question in this format, some people think the question itself needs elaboration, needs to be democratized so that it becomes a commodity. And the comment that do you think birthdays are and can be accelerators? So if you're going to never going to meet somebody because either you're born on the wrong side of the mountain or you live on the wrong side of a zip code, and you need to be able to bridge yourself to an opportunity. What are the possible mechanisms that can be available to you? Some are using social media as accelerators. Some use networks as accelerators. Some use nothing at all, hoping that tomorrow will be able to produce accidents. We are privileged to live in a generation where technology has allowed the barriers that disconnected people to be bridged. It means one can be able to be in another jurisdiction without leaving the place where they wish to access the world. So if you continue to pose questions like I do, there are some people who actually don't like me because I pose questions without answers. There are some people who benefit from the questions because by being able to ask a question that nobody else has asked before, it means you are provoking people, igniting people to think. And all too often, thinking is the biggest problem. Another question I posed is, do you think birthdays can accelerate connectivity and inspiration? Henry Musikawan, welcome. You may have thoughts on that. Tinashe Mpasiri, welcome. Do you think birthdays or birthday celebrations can accelerate connectivity and inspiration? Connectivity, I mean, when you just say to somebody you don't know, happy birthday, when you attend a party to celebrate someone's birthday. Do you think being present at that event will do you good or undermine your professional growth and acceleration? And do you agree that all too often we confuse institutions with individuals who act in their name? I guess some people will be able to follow through what the question really entails. It is the case that we talk most of the time of companies, which is an institution, which is a juristic person. We talk of churches, we talk of football clubs, rugby clubs, or all sports, Olympics, athletics, but without understanding the difference between the players and the institution, the difference between the institution and spectators, the relationship between the institution and infrastructure, the physical asset. When I go to a bank, I think the bank is the brick and mortar. But in our generation, we have seen the transformation of the transmission of banking services and the execution of what otherwise would be banking transactions. So when you look at the future that I want, would you want a future where you just sit back and allow history to be told in the actions and thoughts of others, or you'd like to be something. So by being able to share some of these questions, for those who have read the questions, I've always posed them without providing an answer. Obviously, in anticipation of people to think and be able to exchange the questions with people who are in their circles. So when you exchange questions, you'll be able to start a conversation. You'll be able to ignite others to have the same conversation. Why is this important? It is important because when we think of leaders, when we think of business people, when you think of names, every day I receive proposals from different people. Some of them are looking just to be connected to somebody. Some of them are looking for working capital, just to be able to finance an order so that they can participate in the profit inherent in the order. But they don't have anyone to look to. Others are just looking for advice. And imagine you were to answer each and every question that comes up. Respond to each and every proposal that is placed on your door. What kind of life would you live? So when I ask these questions, it is actually a plea to people to get more organized. Because organized people will always get the best advantage of life. Not because they are smart, but because they've chosen to work in networks. So if you work in a net, you are likely to find other people in the same net, facing maybe not the same challenges that you face, but they may be able to be the pointers to where the solutions lie. Yet, we would rather deal person to person. And when you say, don't deal with person to person, there is less value in person to person interfaces. There is more value in being organized for change. If you need to grow professionally and you need to expand your horizon, it means you can be able to be the change that you want to see. Alphonse Chuma, I love this talk. I hope it grows and people understand the value of it. Some people generally would rather talk about big things. Imagine going into a country and going to a small suburb, then finding yourself in a restaurant and hear what people are talking about. Most of the time they talk about the national president. Then you ask, do you know who your counselor is? The response you get, I don't know. And I don't care. But I care more about the people I don't see. I care more about the people who are so far away, so remote, to be able to change my own local life. When I got a puncture, I can't ask the president of the country to come and fix it. When a water pipe bursts, I also cannot ask the national president to do that. When things go wrong in my community, who do I go to? When I fall sick, who do I call upon? Some may not even have a doctor, may not even have a local resource. Even if they've left the country of birth. For instance, Zimbabwe, they go to faraway shores. 90% of the time is spent using the rear view mirror, talking about the places and the people they left behind, and being blind to the problems that are in their faces. This is the human condition. You can fly so far unless your mind and attitude changes. It means your altitude will always be limited. It will always pull you back where you came from, because most of the people would actually be somewhere else than where they are. They can't celebrate the climb they've made to be where they are, and the grace that has allowed them to navigate seemingly seamlessly. But they would rather be able to condemn where they came from, as if that would decide how the future will be shaped and defined. Henry Msikawan, to some extent, attending birthday parties may accelerate an opportunity to your advantage, as some people always want face value. In fact, that may be an excuse to meet. Would you agree that a birthday is a convenient excuse? If I call somebody today and I say, I know this chap, he's looking for a job, 99% of the time, that CV will be thrown somewhere. But if I meet informally at a birthday, that CV would find expression in the workplace. You may even be invited on the Monday after the Saturday where the party was held, when the party was held. Being invited to come and see the CEO, and the CEO will call the HR person, and the HR person will then be able to talk to you, having been introduced in the office of the CEO. But imagine I use social media, or I write a letter and say, please attend to Mr. Henry Msikawan. The first thing is say, why Henry? The second thing is, are you related to Henry? And if something goes wrong, they'll always come back to you. Mr. Mawere, the person you recommended to us didn't work out. And when most people, things don't work out, politics is the next address. They will insult everybody. They will say anything they can say. Only yesterday they may have been looking for a job. The next day, they actually own the job. And nobody can move them out. Welcome, Butler Bright Maposa. So when you look at the future that you want, if you want Mawere to help you, to help yourself, then it is up to you to organize your affairs so that you are associated with that person. Some people say pictures speak on their own. Imagine you are at a birthday and you have a picture with a very, very important person in terms of society. You take that picture. What is the value of that picture? There are some people who say, Mawere, you should not even interface with people on social media. It's a waste of your time because people are not grateful. And if they are not grateful, why give them your time when actually they will turn around and think that you are doing so because there is a motive, instead of embracing it and putting together administrative systems that would allow us to create the semblance or the illusion of power. Because if people think you're powerful and people think you are connected. What is families after all? If my father has worked for the name and he became rich, and I am the son of the father, then and I carry his name, automatically that son acquires certain privileges that they may not have worked for. And they build on that foundation. Even at school, they will ask you, who is your father? Who is your mother? And if they are people of influence, automatically you carry that goodwill without having to pay for it, whereas other people will have to work for it. I know even the name that I share, Mawere. There are many other Maweres that are not related to me. And there are many who are also related to me. And there are people who even talk about me, even when I am not there. And when they are asked which Mawere, even if they are not related to me, and there's an advantage to be gained by just saying, yes, I'm related, I'm sure they'll say, yes, we are related. And if that works for them, I would only say, good luck. I've done my purpose to humanity just by being able to be the basis of a conversation that will lead to something. Most of our conversations actually lead to nothing. But there are many things that are done without people being present. How many of us actually know that Sisu John Rhodes, although the area between the Zambezi and Limpopo was named Rhodesia, he actually never received mail in Rhodesia. He was at all material times a visitor. The only visit that was permanent was his remains, which are at Matopo Hills. But he was in Cape Town. Yet he never was confused about what role he could play in respect of that territory called Rhodesia. Then when I tell people that I left Zimbabwe in 1988 and I have not received mail in Zimbabwe, people think it's a joke. People actually think it's a lie. So how do you convince people who conclude in their own minds and actually argue with you that you are lying about your own life? Then you say, tell me, if I ran away from Zimbabwe, there must be an address I ran away from. Like Vice President Mnangagwa, there is a place that he ran. He is no longer in Zimbabwe, and people can go to a house that he slept last week. Yet, that privilege of being the author of your own life, the mouthpiece of your own life, is taken away. And people argue over things that they have no knowledge of, when actually associating could be to their benefit. My experiences could be the missing link that may be required to unlock an opportunity that may have been elusive for a long time. So when we talk about public power and the role of the public office bearer in relation to business, in relation to religion or other spheres of human endeavor, instead of allowing the people who have lived it, which is what I was saying to S. Lumumba today, we have lived it. And as we have lived it, we may have experiences that the youth require. But if you create this illusion that the future of Zimbabwe must be youth-centric, forgetting that those who are old were also young one day, what kind of future do you want? Would it be desirable if when you are older, you are then exterminated? You are then removed from the family of humanity, solely to prove the point that the youth should own the future. What about if you are youthful and you are an idiot? What is to happen? How do you regulate this? Because there are many people who believe that with age comes wisdom. What about if you are old and you are a fool? Who is going to regulate that? Should your rights as a human being be taken away just because you are foolish on something but smarter on others? Shouldn't we come to a civilization where whatever my feelings about you, because there are many people who have failed exams and succeeded in the exam of life. How do you balance the two? On the one hand, we are looking for people who are certified to be knowledgeable. But those without certificates actually may be the addresses where knowledge and wisdom resides. How are we to distinguish between the two? Should we accept as fact and truth that those who purport to be educated actually are educated, or have the wisdom in them that would then surpass those who may never have operated in the four corners of a school? Alphonse Chuma. Let's see what Alphonse is saying. But generally Zimbabweans, again, we need to interrogate that. Who is a Zimbabwean? Who is not? Out of Zimbabwe or in Zimbabwe, bad politics cost us a lot. How does politics become bad and you are good? So if Alphonse, you are good, it means the decisions you make will always reflect the goodness in you. Where is it that your life will then be determined by the decisions of another, and you accept it, you acquiesce to it, and you become the product of the evil in other people's actions and minds? I meet a lot of brilliant people who have a lot to offer for our country, who have a lot, but it is hard to operate in a country where the constitution is not respected. Constitutions, you will agree with me, Alphonse, it's just pages of document. But do you live your life to offer something to the country where the proceeds of your own labor will then be deposited into this national account? Or first you must earn income before it is taxed. And government can only give that which it would have taken from somebody else. Any other civilization where government itself becomes the fountain or the printer of money, you know there's something wrong. I mean person property. If we don't respect private property, because property itself, I'm sure Alphonse you agree, it's value in motion. Anything of value requires protection. Anything of no value, nobody will keep it. Even if we were to take ourselves, we can operate without clothing, but we have decided in the course of human life experiences that we ought to cover ourselves and our private parts must be covered. But if you happen to be in the nude community where it is okay just to be naked, there is nothing that you lose if somebody has seen your penis or vagina. Nothing at all. But how many people actually believe that being naked itself is a sin, or it's something that ought to be regulated? But we are the people who are the living. We are the people who put our own rules. And those rules are informed by what we want to see. You start a business and you lose it to a politically favored who carries no aspirations about the business. Yes, it so happens if I take a car and the tank is full of petrol, at some stage that car will come to a standstill unless I replenish the oil, unless I service the car, I replenish the tire. So everything comes to an end, including life. So what do we learn about life? That we are in the face of time that we don't control. Time that is given common to all, without reservations, without favor or prejudice. The only issue is how do we use our time. We can choose to use the time by talking about others, the grace this, grace that, that one that, Savannah this, Savannah that. But then what? After that talk, what and where do we go to? I said to somebody who was so angry with my criticism, or what he thought of criticism as Lumumba's video, all I did in your presence was to create an alternative narrative to what S. Lumumba is saying. Is S. Lumumba saying that Grace Mugabe will never be president of Zimbabwe? If that is the case, then it means he knows that what we don't know. Whoever thought that Mnangagwa would be vice president and in less than 5 years he would be outside the country? A few weeks ago, if somebody would ask him what time it is in Zimbabwe, he would have told you Mnangagwa's time, and they are in charge. But today he finds himself outside the borders of Zimbabwe. Perhaps he's privileged because he's got resources. How many other people have found themselves outside the borders of Zimbabwe, actually running away in fear, genuinely, but not knowing where they are going to stay when they arrive? Yet there are other people who have left Zimbabwe who actually know precisely where resources are and how to navigate their own. Savannah Madamumbi, thank you, welcome. Savannah, and congratulations for winning an award. Is it Zimbabwe Achievers Award? Congratulations in order. If you do something, I think other people will notice. Not because you want them to notice, but because you're just doing what you love to do. And you're not doing it to please anybody. Yet other people would think otherwise. So, you say if we remain open-minded, in fact, if you say, if I, as Savannah, remains open-minded, it will be the best cure to most of the challenges, misunderstandings, and misconceptions. It means it will rub onto you. I mean, people who associate with you because they believe your mind is open. In any event, why close your mind? What is the benefit from closing one's mind when other people actually benefit? Even a fist. Why use a fist when the same hand can actually give you 5 open ones? If you are welcoming, then you always find that actually you benefit from the diversity that human civilization brings. Anyone who is not you is actually a better person. But imagine we speak on their behalf. So when I was talking about birthdays, I was really serious to say sometimes we don't have accelerators. Sometimes we wait for somebody. Imagine you were in Zimbabwe at 1980 and you voted and you danced and you laughed and you did everything to express your joy that a new Zimbabwe dawned, and you went home and trusted the then Prime Minister to take care of your problems. Now that we have a black government, surely solutions must follow that reflect the change of gravity or the power of gravity. That whereas yesterday the government was there to save the minority, now it is our time. Say, what time is it? It's black time. Then you wait, 1980, 1981. Still the face of the president is not there. His voice as well doesn't reach you. He doesn't even know what you're going through. And then you climb the mountain. You arrive in 2017. You have been waiting for him to do something to lift you out of whatever condition you found yourself in. And the reality is, outside the elections, the president never came to you to say, hang on, chap, I know without you I would not be who I am today, and therefore I owe my being to you, and I am in government to save you. Unfortunately, I never had the opportunity to come and see you, but time has elapsed. You were once a young man like us, and today you are a rugged man, because time has taken its toll on you, has dampened your dreams. Your aspirations are no longer what they were. Even if you still have them, there's nothing you can do to make good on them. Then you look back, like Shawshank Redemption, and reflect of the journey traveled, the squandered opportunities on the way. Then you say to yourself, what if I actually had done something in 1980 to help understand what independence was all about? When we say we are independent, what exactly does it mean? When we say it's our government, what exactly does it mean? And this is the challenge that we face. IJ Singh, welcome. Doreen Pesi, welcome. Surprise Nyanzira, I see you have raised a question, and I may not have the answers, because I was never born to anticipate questions and to answer questions, because that actually falls outside the mandate I was given to live life. But however, I'll read your question to the extent that I will be able to comment on it. Accept my comments are just comments coming from somebody who doesn't know what you know. Recent developments in Zimbabwe government simply points to one direction, and which is that a new Zimbabwe is coming, and it's getting closer and closer. I'm not too sure, surprise, whether you may also be surprised. If you do nothing, the future will be written in the actions of those who do something. That's what I've learned. Even if Mugabe wins the elections next year, his days are coming to an end. It is not Mugabe, the person, that we should be worried about, but the ideas on which the society that is Zimbabwe today is shaped and defined. Its character and personality reflects not just the person or the personality or character of Mugabe, but Mugabe, to the extent that he's a head of state, he actually embodies all of us. If we were to create a statue and give it life, it will then be the aggregate of all of us. And when we exclude ourselves and ask of somebody to do the things that we can't do for ourselves, then we must know the end is near. ZANU-PF can never be the same again after that. ZANU-PF is neutral in all this surprise. I should like to believe that whether Mugabe is dead or alive, the people who subscribe to an idea, not ZANU-PF, will continue to pursue that idea. This morning, I know on a radio interview on 1873 FM, a question was posed. What is your take on the idea that economic justice can best be won by free men through a market system or through free enterprise? Many actually believe and articulate the narrative that actually the future is more secure with a strong government, with strong people in government, with enlightened people in government, with smart people in government. They don't talk about values. That value alone, if you think of it, economic justice can best be won by free men through a market system. It is contested, but it's an idea. You can say no, there can never be justice without a big man and the smart man in the form of a president. You can also say free markets. What is a free enterprise? Free enterprises failed the poor. How come we have a world that is divided? On the one hand, we have the rich, on the other, we have the poor. And there seems to be no bridge that will allow somebody who is poor today to navigate through to where somebody is located who is rich. Unemployment. Today I don't have a job. Other people have a job. We live in a divided society. How are we to bridge those job seekers and those who need jobs? Then you look at poverty. Some people say the poor are the wretched of the earth. That actually they have been thrown out of the bus by the rich. And therefore, the government is there to protect this endangered animal called the poor. So when we look at the conditions that people are living in, whether Mugabe is there or not there, it doesn't occur to me that actually Mugabe is relevant in the quest of a better life. That you and I, we have the obligation to secure the kind of life we want to see. That's one view. Mugandira. I also want to know, Mr. Mawere, don't you have future plans to be in the forefront to navigate Zimbabwe into a prosperous country? It seems all people who seem to know what should be done are all in exile. Where do we go from here? Should we continue to hope and hope while we are suffering? Mugandira, that's what I'm trying to share with you. That it started as a conversation on birthdays, but I think it can apply. The solutions are there. If we invested in building a new value set, that would diminish this propensity to look to a big man to a messiah, to an angel, to a smart guy, to solve our problems. You may look at me as a problem solver. I think the best I have already done is to give up my time to share it so that I can share ideas. Some of them may not be understandable, I understand, because maybe the way I talk, the language used is not democratic. But assume that is the case. It gives you the chance to be ignited, to find out what I'm saying in the quietness of your time and through your other friends and family. When you share with them this podcast and say, listen to it, please tell me whether this idiot called Mawere is making sense or not. If he is not, then that's fine. If he is, can we decode what he's saying so that we can narrow it into practical things that we can do today and tomorrow so that our future is secure? Because it is only secure when you choose to secure it. It will not be secured by those who are in comfort. Those who are outside the hospital and are not sick have no reason to know the doctor. You may find that many people in government actually think the myriad of problems that are faced by the living in Zimbabwe is just a fluke, just a joke, just an illusion, because they don't have the same experience. And you can't force your experience on somebody else. I can't go to the president and say, what does a mosquito look like? What does a fly look like? When other people are paid to prevent flies from coming to share the food. But if I go to the poor and say, what is a fly? They will tell me with distinction and precision when they last saw one and what it does and what menace it can cause. Innocent Denda. It's time we look for leaders, not misleaders, yes. I don't know where you get these people. We have started a show on radio. Perhaps you can also contribute to us, to share with us this animal called a leader. What is it like? Where does it emanate from? What is its seed? And restore law and order. We have been looking for that person called a leader. Because what I do know is that we are human and we are capable of doing amazing things. Because we are creative, we are innovative, and we think, and the power of thought is deposited in us for free. All we have to use it is to use that God-given talent or gift to our advantage, to make a 10 on our lives. So when you say 10 over, it means your life is turning for the better. And we need to be able to talk to this idea of leadership. I hope, Innocent, you agree with me. That is not an easy term. It has been abused, yes, because we want to be led without thinking about the character and personality of that would-be leader. Innocent then goes on to say, Mr. Mawere, to be honest, if Mugabe goes, things will change. They won't change because Mugabe is absent. They will change because you have taken action to change it, to steer it towards where you think it should go. The word Mugabe and economic, there is no equilibrium. You may decide to take a view, which you are entitled to, that the alpha and omega of all the problems in Zimbabwe is Mugabe. Then, if he dies, then surely the problem is gone. Or should be gone. That's an easy way out. Why I say so? Look at Cuba. When Fidel Castro gave power to his brother Raul, things changed. And Cuba embargo was lifted. Economy is speaking now because of change of name. Yes, you can change and tinker around the changes. Nobody will say that in itself is change. The mere fact that there will be a new president of Zimbabwe. We can take a minimalist view that Mugabe's exit necessarily produces consequences. One such consequence is this idea that Mugabe is the source of all evil, and therefore his exit actually translates into problem solving. But you may discover in the fullness of time, if you were to be allowed to penetrate President Mugabe's head, what do you think will be found resident in his mind? Do you think he will share your sentiment that he is the problem and not the solution? Do you think after 37 years he will agree with you that he is not experienced to run the country and anyone else is? Would you agree? Tozo Ona Jacob Maforo, I agree with you. Problems in Zimbabwe are obviously more than Mugabe. They are systemic. Yes. So let's go to the systemic issues. Let's use our birthdays, our funerals, to begin to talk about what is a systemic problem and how does Mugabe fit in the matrix of all the possible problems that exist in Zimbabwe. If it is the case that Mugabe has the answer to all the problems that we face, then I guess somebody may say, why don't I even take a shotgun? And the shotgun will be able to solve the problems. But the reality of this war is actually the opposite. That the problems were there before Mugabe. Poverty does not have an age. I can't give age to and say poverty is worth X and the poverty is worth Y. Yeah, this will not work. This will not work. So poverty exists independent. If it exists, because yesterday we were talking about what is it? What is poverty? And we may find actually poverty is something that we've never actually thought about or thought through. And we have that narrative of poverty. And we need to be able to find out what poverty is. What poverty is and what you think it is. So before we look for the problem, let's look for a solution. Let's define the problem. Let's define the problem. It may be better that way. Let's list all the possible questions that will help us understand the problem and then be able to fix it. Mugabe's tenacious grip in the system, get ready for the men with the votes. Okay, tenacious grip. Let's think about it, Innocent. Let's reflect on what you're saying. You're saying there's a tenacious is one word you've used. Voluntarily you've offered the word in the arena where conversations should take place. You have introduced grip. You have introduced system. So tenacious, grip, and system. How can I grab this system? Ruramai Mash, hello, welcome. Tendai Choto, the biggest problem we have in Zimbabwe is our politics of patronage. Let's assume we understand the problem. Tendai, can you pose it as a question? What is the question that you think we should pose? And Innocent, frame it as a question so we can create a basis to solve it. Because what is life without problem solving? The only problem in Zimbabwe is our president and his members. Jason Maposa says, okay, so what is that the question? The only problem in Zimbabwe is the only problem in Zimbabwe Mugabe and his members? Is that the question you want to pose? Or am I reflecting the question? Before Ruramai says Mawere is a delusionary. So, Jason, please frame your question so that I can be able to add something or to assist in framing the circumference of a possible solution. Ramai says, I did not say that. Whatever you said, it's fine. You have to say it because you are free anyway to say, and you should say it in front of me. There's no problem. Whatever you wanted to say, so that we can begin to have a conversation. Where you find I'm misleading you, say so. Where you find I'm confusing you, say so. Withdraw even. You don't even have to listen because I'm not doing it for you. I'm just doing it for myself because I am concerned about the state of affairs. And I'm also concerned that what is in the public space is not inching us closer to some solution. And Innocent says, the problem is Zimbabweans were docile to Mugabe thought. You are still not raising a problem. Please frame your problem. What are you saying? Are you saying Zimbabweans belong to a class of docility? Are you saying that Mugabe's thought dominates other thoughts? That what you are saying indeed, you are saying so because Mugabe is a super genius? If so, talk to us about Mugabe's thought. Where does it become exceptional? If indeed you believe, Innocent, that Mugabe's thought is exceptional, is he an exceptional human being? Did he enter the world through the womb of a woman? What would make Mugabe exceptional? What would make Mugabe so gifted that his thoughts interfere with your thoughts? And at what address can we go to where Zimbabweans become a class of docile people? And that Innocent, you have been to that address where you can group all the people who are so diverse, so differently gifted, that you can then reduce them to this mass, which is the issue I was raising with S. Why reduce sovereign human beings, discrete human beings, into a class that suits a narrative that you wish to advance? Why can't we accept that Zimbabweans themselves are not a homogeneous group? They are diverse. You can't add one's brain and another's brain and get two brains and create an address where the brains would meet. And then you say Zimbabwe's brain is there. Your individual brain, I left it with you. Is that possible? Is that realistic? I don't think so. Let's try to frame questions so that we can be able to talk about possible solutions and we can have a shared understanding of the problem statement. So if we call this show The Future I Want, in search of a problem statement, so that we can list all the problems that require resolution. Tozoona Jacob Maforo, governance is a problem. Yes, it may be the problem, but to who is it a problem? To the people you call governors? To the people who are governed? To the people who are riding on this omnibus called Zimbabwe, in which President Mugabe is the sole pilot with his assistant. This is beyond government systems. Churches struggle with governance, organizing, even those of Zimbabweans in the diaspora, they have governance problems. And opposition parties in Zimbabwe are grappling with governance issues. So can we say governance is inherently a human challenge? Just the power to organize. I know agonization may be the preference, that we agonize in our own spaces, private groupings, we agonize. But the power, the ability to organize is one of the biggest challenges that mankind faces. It's not a Zimbabwean problem, I would like to believe. Institutions are difficult to set up. Marriage is an institution. How many fail in the journey? How many succeed? How many pretend they've succeeded, actually, without knowing that they've never moved from where they were before? In fact, they came into marriage as separate people, live through it as separate people, die as separate people. So these challenges of institution building, of bringing diverse people together to share a common purpose, it's not so easy. We have heard of Old Mutual, Ruramai, but we have yet to see a new mutual. Not because we don't have young people. Imagine a young person starting a fight with Mugabe, with whoever, just to raise your voice higher than others, only to prove that actually you are an empty vessel. Is that a productive use of time? Because if you identify that there's need for a new mutual, because if we spend money together, we all spend less. It doesn't require a doctorate to do that. It requires you to be able to be the agent of change. And it requires you to cause that change to take place by presenting yourself. So, Ramai, you say you're admiring me. In a funny way, I enjoy listening to you. It doesn't have to be fun anyway. Either you want to hear my voice on issues that matter to you, that you think are worth sharing. This is not a funny business. Shouldn't be a funny business. Otherwise, we'll be comedians. I'll be Trevor Noah and spend your time. But my interventions are solely meant to ignite your mind to think about issues that matter, not to trivialize things that could be the trigger for what Zimbabwe needs. We are looking for something to ignite. We must accept that it has taken 38 years to discover that we don't have a solution. That Mugabe, you may not like him, but you can't produce 37 reasons why Mugabe should not be a president. Yes, we can say he was not elected, he didn't win the election, but that's neither here nor there. He is the president, in spite of what we say as armchair revolutionaries or whoever we are. So let's try to be able to go beyond what we are talking about. Then, Innocent, we allow our Mugabe to be the problem. No one can criticize or tell him anything other than we run away of Zimbabwe. You may discover, as I have said before, that even the First Lady may be a negotiator of note, that the so-called G40 are actually trying to negotiate their way to convince the president that his way of not naming a successor is wrong. And the First Lady says, mark my words, we are going to create a successor because I know my husband will not do that. So we are going to give him a straight jacket. He has to fit in it. If it's a glove, he must fit in it. And that's what is going to happen. And Musikawan, on a democratic system, is it constitutional right to allow our junta to dictate who we should elect to be our president, even when the candidates are from Zimbabwe? I don't know. You could have something you are saying, but I'm not hearing you. What is the problem? Are you saying that there is a junta that has dictated or given you a gun, a bullet, to say you must do this or that? At this hour, is that what you are suggesting? If so, let's deal with it. Frame the question that yesterday I got a threat of a bullet and I am under siege. I have to vote as prescribed, and then if it's a secret ballot, you must then overcome the mischief in your own statement of the problem. If the junta is the one that dictates, then surely we must know the identity of the junta. Who are they? Let's not use big words, junta. Who is in that junta? Let's look at the last 37 years and look at the footprint of the junta. And then get the live bodies to testify and say, yes, I was going to vote this way, were it not for this junta. And how did they know each other? That one is a junta, one is not. Fafi Gwindi. And to whom is it up to find a remedy? That's a question that is in the arena. Who is going to find the remedy? Asks Fafi. Innocent Denda. The fraudulent conduct by those in power. Again, the word fraudulent conduct has two sides to it. I think, Innocent, you agree. What may be fraudulent to you may not be fraudulent to another. Power itself needs to be defined. Let's raise the questions. Are the people in government in power? If so, how does that power interface with me? Just an ordinary bloke who is trying to leave Zimbabwe, cross the border. And I see people crossing every day. And there's no power or force that can stop them. I have seen worse cases. Somebody walks from Somalia, arrives country A, country B, and he knows he's not arrived. He arrives in South Africa and says, thank God, or Allah has, His will has been done. I have arrived. And he arrives in South Africa and says, that's where my spirit is. But if you ask him and you look at him, you look at the scars, you look at the memories, and you say no power could stop this man or woman from inching towards where the spirit is, like a camel looking for an oasis, looking for water. Nothing can stop it. You can kill me, but when I know what I want to do, there is no fraud that can defy the human spirit. Totally involved in bribery and tenders. Yes. Typically involved in bribery and tenders. Yes. Bribery is, you can say that again. If bribery is a problem, let's deal with the problem. If it's weak now that you're talking about, if it's so and so you're talking about, let's talk about it. Let's not give fictitious people fictitious bribes. Let's deal with it and be able to come to a problem statement that we can advance. And all government institutes, Mugabe defending people of corrupt activities, so Mugabe is our problem. Yeah, if Mugabe is defending, let's get to him. But Mugabe may be told that Professor Moyo is not corrupt, that actually bought bicycles for the constituents of Cholocho. So the narrative, so if you are not in favor, you are not given an opportunity to explain your way. Mnangagwa may also be looking for the same opportunity to revisit his alleged mischief. Because we have centered the government in the mind of one individual. Yet that individual is just mortal. He's just a human being like you and me. Jason Maposa. Mr. Mawere, even if we can try to put ideas on the table, Mr. Mugabe cannot agree. Mr. Mugabe is not on social media. He is not here. Let's not import him into this conversation. Let's deal with defining the problem. Can you do that for me as a favor? Without importing Mugabe in this. Let's define the problem. Then let's find the solutions. Just as ideas first, before we come to implement. I'm sure you'll agree. Before the Bulwer interface meeting, people already knew what was going to happen at the meeting. That some people were going to boo somebody. And after booing, somebody was going to be convinced that what he has been told before actually is a reality. Then after that, the Mapo stories were already organized before. Somebody already knew that there was going to be Mapo story on Sunday. How would they set up a meeting without knowing what was to happen the day before? What if they had misfired? What if Mnangagwa had been poisoned? What if Mnangagwa was a man privy to intelligence that there's going to be some booing, and he decided to say, let me fall sick? All these plausible scenarios, we're giving them up because we want to believe that there is only one narrative. He only has his way of running the country as if he is running a tax shop. Let's frame the problem. Can a country be run? If so, by whom? And what would the enterprise of running a country mean? Ramai Mash, not that way. I'm enjoying sharing it. Get a lot from you actually. Just my other people do not get you always. Thanks to Ramai. I hope you are not a president when you say you have other people, your other people. Speak. I always want to speak in the singular. If I enjoy something, I will always go towards it. If I am thirsty, I will look for water. If I'm not thirsty, then water is irrelevant to me. Tafazo Mjanja, Mr. Mawere, even Mawere raised his voice, and Zimbabwe just watched from the sidelines until the system broke him. Why? again, I spoke to Pastor Evans, and all I was asking him, like many people, like Ramai says, when I'm communicating, sometimes I communicate in riddles. So maybe I'm not being heard. What is the problem Pastor Evans wishes to solve? Is it to unseat Mugabe and replace him with the flag? Or to cause Zimbabwe to be ungovernable so that another dispensation comes into force? Or Pastor Evans is saying, I want to be a community organizer like Barack Obama, so that I can emerge from the community saying, okay, independent of government, we still need to find a solution. Who is my councillor? Who is my mayor? Where do I live? How do I make local government work? How do I make national government work? How do I mobilize people to raise the uncomfortable questions about how government is managed? How do I locate myself in the group, knowing that I'm an individual, but I am the face of change? How do I conduct myself so that we can democratize democracy? Because an eye for an eye, we end up both blind. So how do we negotiate? What is the problem statement that needs to be addressed? Let's think about the problem. Ask Pastor Evans Mawere, what is the problem that he seeks to solve? Yes, the people who put bond notes, they will tell you there is a cash shortage. And if there's a cash shortage, what is the remedy, Pastor? Is it to pray for cash or to put controls on the cash available? But if we raise it as an idea that cash is property that belongs to the party that deposits it in the bank. So cash is like any other property. I can convert cash into cabbages. The moment somebody says you can't eat this cabbage, you are interfering with my right to my property. So how is the question framed around the issue of bond notes? Is it framed as if we are saying that the government should be helpless, do nothing, or that there are fundamental principles that should underpin a democratic state, and that requires a constitutional order that is democratic, that allows people to protect their own property? So if I have earned $1,000, I deposit in the bank instead of buying a car, I should not suffer any disability from getting my money. And secondly, I should also not be deprived or denied access to my property. Whatever the problems are, when I put my cash, it was in one form. When I take my cash on demand, I must get it. And on demand means on demand. It means I don't have to justify myself why I need more than $50 per day. That is what it takes. Innocent Dena, Justin, thank you. We have one problem. We can do all methodologies and policies. With Mugabe, we have an obstacle. He will do whatever he wants and will remain submissive. Back to systemic issue. My second issue is corruption. My argument is that this is widespread. Yes, you have raised a question. Are we saying that when Mugabe goes, corruption will go? What are we saying? What is the problem statement? Is it that under Mugabe's watch, corruption has become a habit? If so, let's start identifying those individuals, like state capture. The people in South Africa talk of state capture, But they're not talking about it independent of human actors. They will identify the Guptas first. It doesn't mean that's all there is in terms of corruption. But it is that we want to give a human face to a problem. And once we give a human face to a problem, then we'll be able to solve it. Then once upon a time, a voice said, we are never to salute anyone without liberation or credentials. Yeah, a person can make utterances, and that's fine. But if he does that when events occur, like anything, Muhammad Ali, before he fought, he made a lot of utterances using his voice. What happened? Sometimes he lost. Sometimes he prevailed. That's what life is. You can shadow box. You can, because obviously for Chiwenga, it benefits him. The status quo is of benefit to him. If you say it is corrupt, you say, my friend, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm just doing what I would do anyway. Whoever the president is. If it means I've made my money out of cutting deals, I will continue cutting deals. Jason Maposa, what happened to Pastor Even? Okay, I thought I'd answered that. And Brandon Gam says, drunk. Fuck, he's saying that I am drunk. And he's saying, fuck me. So that, I don't know, after those words, what Brandon wants to achieve. And if I'm drunk, then why should you even listen to a drunk person? It's better to excuse yourself, Brandon. There's no compulsion on your part to listen to things that don't speak to your spirit. You are sovereign, and you are also sovereign to withdraw yourself from mental anguish. You don't have to be what you don't have to be. So I think John Smith Ndebele, thank you for joining. So I think there we are. So what I wanted to talk about, I've expressed. Those who have joined later, I think I was saying, look, in life, please learn to organize, not agonize. Also understand the laws of economics. Volume gives you value. And scale does matter. If we choose to think alike and negotiate, so that we can narrow the areas of dispute, we can narrow the areas, we sharpen our thinking around defining what time it is in Zimbabwe. What are the problems that really need to be addressed? So we got that problem. So we need to be able to reflect. We need to be able to think, because these problems will only come and go. But if we have never paused to think about the problems will always come. So let's try to reflect. Let's try to think. Let's try to network. Let's try to build circles where these things can be talked about. So, if we can't define the problem, if we can't ask the questions in a manner that ignites solutions, then where are we to go? We will forever say, if Mnangagwa goes, if Nkuruma dies, if Patrice Lumumba goes, then things are okay. When actually Nkuruma died, Banda died. How many people have died in office, outside office? And the human condition has not changed simply on the back of the exit of one or the other from the life we call life. So what is it that we learn about what makes other countries appear to get their act together, and others appear not to get their act together. If we look at Africa, let's say white people were the problem. Mr. Mawere, even if we can try to identify the problem and corrupt big bosses, there's nothing that can be done to Zimbabwean bosses. They'll continue and eating millions. So if you have given up, Jason, then I think don't discourage others from identifying the problem. Mnangagwa was identified as a problem, or if they created a problem on him, then you must accept that he's no longer vice president. Earlier on, Joyce Mujuru was identified as a problem. What happened? Joshua Ngomo, early in 1982, he was identified as a problem, and guess what happened? There were consequences. But people define the problem. They spend their time thinking about the problem, and they put their resources to articulate the problem with clarity and precision, so that nobody was ever confused about what the problem was or ought to be. So people identify problems. That's what we do every day. We try to solve problems. And I was just reading something, I think in August 12, 20, I mean, the way even Ngomo left the country in self-imposed exile. He went to London after illegally crossing the Botswana frontier disguised as a woman on 7th March 1983. And Ngomo before that, which is on the 6th of March, he was in Zimbabwe. On the 7th of March, he left, claiming that his life was in danger and that he was going to look for solutions for Zimbabwean problems abroad. But he still came back. So talking about organizing and not agonizing, what is the Africa Heritage Society about? What does it take? Where does it take us? We started the Africa Heritage Society in 2003 simply to deal with this identity issue. Who am I? Am I a human being? Am I an African? Who has got a better claim to this African promise? Fully knowing that none of us, the living, actually invested in building the resources required to convert Africa into a functioning environment. So we looked at Africa and said, let's have conversations around this African promise. So some of the conversations that I'm having, even Ramai, the thing that we are having, it has taken a lot of time, maybe 14 years, to think through some of these problems. So when I talk, I am just talking freely because it's some of the things that I've learned through the conversations under the umbrella of Africa Heritage Society. It has taken me this far to understand that there's a difference between an institution and the individuals who act on their behalf. I have discovered that even the mightiest of all people in government or outside government are not exceptional. I've learned a lot. And it is that knowledge that I think ought to be shared. It is those ideas that I think ought to find expression in the public space. So ideas can rebel. Ideas can battle each other without battling the person. How do we rise above these limitations of personalizing problems. That Zimbabwe problems is equal to the person of Mugabe. And be able to also locate ourselves in the problem itself so that we can change our ways and we can reflect on what we've been doing and why we have failed seemingly against one individual, however powerful he is, that we have failed to actually offer an alternative narrative that even him would be able to say, hang on, I think there's something to ponder about. So even the people you may say are on the opposite side of your argument, salute them, respect them, understand what they've done differently to achieve whatever they have achieved, which makes it possible for us to talk about what they've achieved. For the past 20 years, Duduzile Gubo, for the past 20 years, no problem has ever been solved. Which problems are you talking about? I'm saying the problem now, Zimbabwe is in comatose. We said, comatose is intensive care. That is self-evident. When you can't get your own property, you deposit cash in a bank and you can't get it out, then you say it's picnic time. There is a problem. There are myriad of problems. There are people who are in government who should be in government. There are people who are outside government who are silent, who should not be silent. The country is divided. Wherever you go, it's like there's this camp, that camp. Just even the idea of calling someone Lacoste, calling someone G40, and then those people work in your government, and you say it's okay. What is this Lacoste thing? What is this 40? Let us have a government of people who serve the people. The people can't be reduced to Lacoste or G40. These are sovereign people deserving our respect. What has gone wrong in Zimbabwe? Let's define the problem that will allow us to find solutions. That's all I'm saying. I'm saying if we have not understood what the problem is, then we'll be able. Last night we did go a long way to identifying a problem. Just using one act of parliament, just to see how this problem is so pervasive. But we are using one thing tangible where we can all read and say, because I can't prove corruption. Trust Pete Kure. We need to change our minds as Zimbabweans. Bring back the positive thinking and unite. And only then can we change the old system that exists. I agree with trust. There is no choice. The mind is the most powerful weapon that we have. The moment the mind actually is not organized, then we got a problem. So we need to be able to deal with the mind. I'm just reading what is called breaking news. The Army Commander General Constantine Chiwenga has opened fire against the Mugabe engineered pages of Lacoste and Gamatox functions. In the first no-holds-barred statement that signals the rift between the army and President Mugabe, Chiwenga, an army general, openly spoke on political issues, a rare development in the nation. See parts of the press statement here. I don't know whether it's true or not. So, I think if it's true, then it's a major development. If not, there may be people who are trying to create some mischief for Chiwenga. Is anyone interested in me reading it? Or you can get it on ZimEye. I don't know whether it's an eye that can be trusted, but there is a statement. If you want me to read quickly on it. It's a diversion, but I guess okay. So let me quickly read it so that let us begin by quoting the constitution of this country, particularly the preamble which speaks of exalting and extolling the brave men and women who sacrificed their lives during the Chiwenga, Umvukele, and national liberation struggles, and honoring our forebearers and compatriots who toiled for the progress of our country. It is with humility and a heavy heart that we come before you to pronounce the indisputable reality that there is instability in ZANU-PF today, and as a result, anxiety in the country at large. Zimbabwe's history is hinged on the ideals of the revolution dating back to the first Chiwenga, where thousands of people perished. ZANU-PF is the political party that waged the second Chiwenga for our independence. We are told that the party waged the second Chiwenga, not the people. The struggle that caused the loss of over 50,000 lives of our people. We are again pre-79 ideas. The struggle in which many Zimbabweans, in one way or the other, sacrificed and contributed immensely with a spirited hope of seeing a prosperous Zimbabwe, but also the hope of leaving behind inheritance and legacy for posterity. It is pertinent to restate that the Zimbabwe Defense Forces remain the major stockholder, not stakeholder, stockholder in Zimbabwe, to the gains of the liberation struggle, not to the constitution. And when these are threatened, we are obliged to take corrective measures. And clearly, ZANU-PF, having mainly been the only party that has ruled this country since independence, it has become a household name to most Zimbabweans across the political divide. Therefore, it is common cause that any instability within the party naturally impacts on their social, political, and economic lives. Accordingly, there is distress, trepidation, and despondence within the nation. Our peace-loving people who have stood by their government and endured some of the most trying social and economic conditions ever experienced are extremely disturbed by what is happening within the ranks of the National Revolutionary Party. What is obtained in the Revolutionary Party is a direct result of the machinations of counter-revolutionaries who have infiltrated the party and whose agenda is to destroy it from within. It is saddening to see our revolution being hijacked by agents of our erstwhile enemies who are now at the brink of returning our country to foreign domination, against which so many of our people perished. The famous slogan espoused by His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Head of State and Government, and Commander-in-Chief of the Zimbabwe Defense Forces, Comrade R.G. Mugabe, Zimbabwe will never be a colony again, is being seriously challenged by challenged by counter-revolutionary infiltrators who are now effectively influencing the direction of the party. It is our strong and deeply considered position that if drastic action is not taken immediately, our beloved country is definitely headed to becoming a neo-colony again. The current paging and cleansing process in ZANU-PF, which so far is targeting mostly members associated with our liberation history, is a serious cause for concern to us in the defense forces. As a result of squabbling within the ranks of ZANU-PF, there has been no meaningful development in the country for the past 5 years. The resultant okay. The media will not hesitate to step in. Therefore, the current ZANU-PF standing political virtues are a product of faithful adherence. No. Okay. Therefore, we want to state here and now. Sorry. There seems to be a problem with. As a result of squabbling within the ranks of ZANU-PF, there has been no meaningful development in the country for the past 5 years. The resultant economic impasse has ushered in more challenges to the Zimbabwean populace, such as cash shortages and rising commodity prices. Our revolutionary path is replete with conduct and rebellion by people who have attempted to destroy the revolution from within. The formation of Release, the attempt to remove the late Comrade Chitepo from his position of chairman at the Mutumwa Bogus Congress in 1973, the Nari Baza Rebellion, the Maningi Story Rebellion soon after the death of Comrade Chitepo, the Avashandi 1 and 2, as well as the rebellion that led to the death of the late Zipra commander Comrade Alfred Nikita Mangena, among others, are cases in point. Therefore, the current shenanigans by people who do not share the same liberation history of ZANU-PF are not a surprise to us. But what is significant to us and the generality of Zimbabweans is to remember that all these rebellions were diffused by the military. But at no point did the military accept power. We must remind those behind the current treacherous shenanigans that when it comes to matters of protecting our revolution, the military will not hesitate to step in. ZANU-PF standing political virtues are a product of faithful adherence to the founding values, decorum, discipline, and revolutionary protocol of the ruling party. Party orders were strictly adhered to, and whatever differences they were resolved amicably and in the ruling party's closet. Unfortunately, since the turn of 2015, ZANU-PF's traditional protocol and procedures have changed, with a lot of gossiping, backbiting, and public chastisement being the order of the day. Indeed, the party is undoing its legacy built over the years. While our people may be persuaded to take what is going on in ZANU-PF as internal political matters in the party, the truth remains that ZANU-PF conduct and behavior as a ruling party has a direct impact on the lives of every citizen. Hence, all of us, regardless of our political affiliation, are affected by the party's manner of doing business. From a security point of view, we cannot ignore the experience of countries such as Somalia, DRC, Central African Republic, and many others in our region, where minor political differences degenerated into serious conflict that has decimated the social, political, and economic security of ordinary people. Section 212 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe mandates the Zimbabwe Defense Forces to protect Zimbabwe, its people, its national security and interests, and its territorial integrity, and to uphold this constitution. Among other security threats that are coming out of what is obtaining ZANU-PF are the reckless utterances by politicians denigrating the military, which are causing despondency within the rank and file. Further, we note with concern that attempts by some politicians to drive a wedge between the security services for their own selfish interests. This is unacceptable. We take great exception to this behavior. There is only one Commander-in-Chief, His Excellency the President, Head of State and Government, and Commander-in-Chief of the Zimbabwe Defense Forces, Comrade R.G. Mugabe. The military is an institution whose roles cut across the wide spectrum of government. Support functions in the form of military aid to civil power and military aid to civil ministers, which are roles derived from defense instruments. Therefore, we want to state here and now that the history of our revolution cannot be rewritten by those who have not been part of it. Having said that, we strongly urge the party to stop reckless utterances by politicians from the ruling party denigrating the military, which is causing alarm and despondency within the rank and file. The current paging of which is clearly targeting members of the party with a liberation background must stop forthwith. So there is no signature to it. So you can imagine where it may be coming from. So that there we are. So yesterday, obviously the military is coming, if it is, it's coming from a different vantage point. So we can meet later on again, and I think we were proceeding on the basis of the Reconstruction Act. There are things that even General Chiwenga may not know. And what he is saying must worry everybody. That he is saying, if you were not in a bush with a gun or in support of that and you were not born, shut up. Don't get involved. This matter is a ZANU-PF matter, which is, he is saying that Zimbabwe is not ready, or the Zimbabwe that he wants to see is not ready for a civilian government, for a handover of the torch to a civilian. That's what it would appear if the statement is authentic to be saying. What is your take? What is his understanding of the problem, if that's him? And Tia says the problem is that there is a thin line between civil and military relations in Zimbabwe. The army is headed by liberation fighters. I don't believe so. There is no liberation war, and nobody has known such a war for the past 38 years. General Chiwenga is an employee of the people of Zimbabwe. He was not employed to rule them or to speak on their behalf. He is employed by UTC. There is no thin line. The military draws its legitimacy from the ballot. And he ought to know that they were fighting to restore republicanism and the equality of men. The moment one man is unequal, simply because he was a fighter, at that moment, you must know the end is near. Not the end of the country, but the end of this construction that says Zimbabwe has two classes of persons. One, a class of forefathers who populate ZANU-PF, and that they alone must be the custodians of your own future. That all of a sudden there's a glass ceiling created by Chiwenga, that he says this is the end of your road, you can't cross over. That's what the statement is saying. That the events of 1970, the history that is being repeated, that history ought to inform the choices of today. That's what you are being told. What else are you being told? That stay put. Your future is not your future. Your future belongs to the minds of the few who can create facts and circumstances, presumably for a coup d'etat, and say we are advancing the interests of Zimbabwe because the people of Zimbabwe are making utterances. And that if you make an utterance against the army, then you are causing destability. You are destabilizing the country. And this is a new narrative. It's an old one, but being recycled to take care of the recent developments that have taken place since Monday last week. The army is headed by liberation fighters. ZANU-PF is also an extension of the liberation fighters in suits. ZANU-PF is a club of members. It has its own rules. You can go to the Constitution. At no stage, at no point does it say that the military have reserved rights, that democracy within the party cannot work, that power can be intermediated through the military. There is no such thing. So, I don't know where you get it. Everything revolves around the military. I'm not sure where that logic flows from. One can hardly separate the following institutions: military, ZANU-PF, and all veterans from the ZANLA and ZIPRA. We are trying to identify the problem here. What is an institution? What are the individuals who act in the name of the institution? This is not the first time people have left ZANU-PF. Why now? What is General Chiwenga saying is that the masses, if they vote against a so-called liberation fighter, then that vote is null and void? Is it what is being said? If it is so, let it be said in clear and eloquent terms that the Zimbabwe is an apartheid state. There are two classes of persons. One, the class of pre-79, only prescribed as the class of freedom fighters. Then, it is this intertwining that makes it possible for the military to intervene in politics. You are already giving yourself this window that there is justification in these utterances. The military enjoys spoils from victory against white Zimbabweans in form of land. I don't know where you have been. This country, President Mugabe is not president because he's a war vet. He has never said so. He's president because of the ballot. And if a new narrative comes in, then it must have its own constitutional basis. General Chiwenga has proved to us today that we are actually a military state and we the civilians have no say at all. That's what it would appear he's saying. But I guess he may disown the statement within 24 hours. So I don't think we should take an unsigned statement to mean, because effectively, if this is the case, then we have a problem. So that is the problem. So I think we have come to the end of this road. So thank you very much. If I've offended you by talking to you, then I'm sorry. If you've benefited from this conversation, that's good for you. Hopefully you can use the knowledge. Those who are interested in participating in understanding this creeping lawlessness using the Reconstruction of State Indebted Insolvent Companies Act as a case study, please just say why. If I get 10, then we can proceed from there. 10 people, just put why. I don't want to assume for you that you are interested in what I'm talking about, so you need to be able to guide me. So Ramai Mash, yes. Stanley Jiri, yes. Tendai Choto, yes. So I got 3 out of 10. Trust Chipete Kure. T Sia, I have 5 now. Mnyaraz Gapu, 6. Trust, it's a repetition. So I got 6 now. So anyone else? Anyone else? I'm remaining with 4. And I got 2 minutes to go. Antonio Muvunde, 7. Tisia, no rigging. One person, 1 vote. 7. I got 7. Counting down. So if there are only 7 people, then it may be an unproductive use of time. Seven. TCR says it's more than half. You can proceed, others will join. We don't have 10 people. We are left with 3. So I think, Sia, your proposal makes sense. So we proceed at 8 o'clock. And please do get a copy of your act. It's called the Reconstruction of State Indebted Insolvent Companies Act. So Tendai says it's great. Let's proceed from there. So